Welcome back to AM Northwest. You know, many people are living to celebrate their 100th birthday. And our first guest this morning says it's never too late to make positive changes. We welcome the author of Age to Perfection, How to Thrive to 100, Judy Gaman. Judy, good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Helen.
What motivated you to write this book?
Well, one thing we were seeing in our practice, Executive Medicine of Texas, was that people were coming in, they wanted to live longer, they knew that the technology was going to get us there, but they didn't want to be 80 or 90 and in a nursing home. They wanted to be 100 and still in their homes.
So did you find then some trends among people? So I'm guessing you then talked to people who were over 100.
We did. We interviewed people that were over 100 and several people even in their 90s, and we did find trends. Some of the most fascinating trends include blueberries. They were all eating blueberries, which is something that a lot of people...
That is interesting.
I know.
I'm going to stock up on blueberries now.
Do it.
Okay.
They also were eating breakfast, usually oatmeal. One of my favorite things that we found that came from our 101-year-old friend Lucille is she said forgiveness was the number one thing that kept her alive and well all these years.
So what about then the other things like keeping yourself mentally busy? I mean, trying new things,
right.
Having a good social circle.
All of those very important. And research before we wrote the book showed that people that go to church or that are in social circles, they live longer. And same thing we found when we did these interviews. These people were very active in their communities, active with their families, and they were doing things like you said to stretch their mind. Crossword puzzles, Sudoku. I mean, I think it's funny at 100 some people were doing Sudoku and, you know, a lot of people in their 30s and 40s just can't do it.
I can't do it. So what, did sex play a role in any of this?
It did. Now, the people that we interviewed over 100, most of them had lost their spouses, so
right.
that wasn't one on their list.
Sure.
But I will tell you, the research shows us that if you have an active monogamous sex life, that you will live longer. It helps with your hormone levels. It helps with a lot of different things. And it's something that is innately important to our well-being.
What about exercise?
Very important. There are a lot of studies out there that have proven that exercise is just as important for things like depression and weight loss, all those things, as even antidepressants. They took people that were on antidepressants, took them off them, had them exercise, and found that exercise was just as important. But it's vital, you know, it's vital to our well-being, to our mental faculties, and our emotional faculties, and our physical well-being.
When you talk to people in their 90s, were they all exercising every day?
Well, they were. I love
Wow.
this. Lucille, the lady I mentioned earlier,
yeah.
She walks about 1 mile a day. I encourages others to.
Wow.
I know. Encourages others to walk. She does little tummy exercises and gets her biceps going. Some of the others still go to the gym. One lady over 100 goes to the
Wow.
gym and she does the circuits. She doesn't put the weights on, but she says she has to, you know, keep the machine well oiled. And I love that they have this wisdom, something that we tend to have forgotten. All the just basic things like exercise and eating right and being around people.
Do certain parts of our body age faster than others?
They do, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand. Now, if you're in your 40s and you've had your eyesight kind of go and the doctor tells you, oh, you know, you need reading glasses,
right.
That's because at about age 40, our skin and our eyes change. But a lot of people don't know that we actually start aging from the time we're born. So in our 20s, our lungs start changing. That's why athletes are really good when they're young. Right. Because about 20, those start changing. And then in our 30s, our circulatory system starts changing a bit as well.
What about an attitude? Did all the people that you talked to who are over 90, let's say, or in their 90s, did they all have a positive attitude, or did attitude play any role in this whatsoever?
Well, the old saying that the meaner you are, you live longer, we didn't find that. We found all the people that we interviewed to be charming. Just wonderful people. One person in their 90s jumps on the trampoline for exercise and just tells jokes. And really having a positive attitude and having a good attitude is what's kept them alive so long and what's kept their relationships going. And of course, one thing that played in on every one of these people is they had a good relationship with God. Regardless of their religion preference, they actually had time that they spent in prayer. And we found that fascinating, that it was a common thread all the way through our 90s and 100-year-old.
That's fascinating. Now, what about men? Because we see a lot of women now living to 100. Are you seeing men live as long as well?
Well, men are living longer than they used to, and a lot of that is because of medical advancements. We now know when someone has a heart attack what the best thing to do is. We used to say go home, go to bed, and don't do anything.
Right.
And that's just the worst thing you could do. So basically, there's a lot of technology that has helped us advance so people can not die from things that they don't need to die from. Heart attacks, strokes, they're recovering. Just things like pneumonia vaccines, flu vaccines, things that used to knock people out early in life, they don't anymore because we're on top of them.
And what about, how does genetics play a role in how long we live?
Well, this is a message that's really important to all of our readers, because just because Uncle Bob had a heart attack and Dad had a stroke and Mom had diabetes doesn't mean that you should just write yourself off, because a lot of these things has to do with their environment.
Right.
So, in their diet, in their exercise levels. So genetics plays a part, but not as big of a part as we thought it did.
What about stress?
Huge. Huge. There's actually a diagram in the book that describes all the things that happen to the body when we're under stress. In Japan, they actually have a thing that they put on death certificates, which actually means worked to death. And here, we actually die of being worked to death, but we don't put it on a death certificate. We don't recognize it as such. But stress and working too many hours, it definitely affects the body.
What have you, I'm curious if you've changed anything since doing this research, since meeting with all these people. Have you changed anything about what you do on a daily life? Do you have oatmeal and blueberries for breakfast?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, it affected me so much. And it affected the physicians I work for and how we tell other patients what to do. And blueberries, big part of my diet. I always liked them, but now I'm eating them a lot. Exercise, making it is just part of the routine and not letting other things get in the way. It's now on my calendar as a scheduled appointment, just like any other appointment I would have, because we have to make these appointments with ourselves. And again, that time for prayer and that time with family really hit home. Those messages hit home for all of us.
And when you mentioned about Lucille saying forgiveness was a big part of it, because when you talk about stress, when you have anger towards someone or you haven't forgiven someone, that's a lot of stress to carry around with you.
Right. You hurt yourself more than you hurt the person you haven't forgiven.
Yeah.
And stress just raises cortisol levels in the body. It causes inflammation. All the research now points to inflammation and cortisol levels being raised as the risk for heart attack, for stroke, for all of those things. So the best thing we can do is to be happy, but do the things that will make us happy. Right. Exercise, eat right, and have good friends.
And forgive. Okay,
and forgive.
So the book again is titled Age to Perfection, How to Thrive to 100. Judy Gaman, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.